Thank you for joining. You're in the right place for the referral management to drive growth, how Texas Orthopedic maximizes referral access and revenue webinar. My name is Joe Jabak. I'm the Director of Marketing at Hatch, and I'll be the moderator today. If I talk a bunch, well, that's a bit of a bummer because we've got some amazing guests here that I'm excited to introduce you to in just a moment. I know your calendars are packed. Hopefully, us doing this around lunchtime has been helpful. The goal today is really to get a deep and practical look into how TXO runs referrals at scale on Athena. Why the referral experience matters more than ever before, the workflows that they've specifically built to kind of meet the market, meet the moment, and meet the patient where they are, and what they're focused on next. So a couple housekeeping items before we get started. First, we are recording this session, and so if you weren't able to make it live, well, obviously you're listening right now. You can send it to anybody else on your team that you want to, based on the conversation topics. And then lastly, we do have time at the end for Q&A. And so feel free to find and drop in your Q&A during the conversation. I'll be constantly looking at those if there's something like that's really specific and great for that moment. If not, we'll be sure to address those. And then in the backstage before this, Hannah and Tanner and I were talking. More than happy to connect you to them to answer any follow-ups or specific questions about the topics and content today. So without further ado, Tanner is the COO at Texas Orthopedics, and Hannah is the North Director of Patient Services, where the centralized referral team sits. Today, Tanner's going to give us the context, the overview, the strategic insights around referral management. Hannah will take us into some of that specific workflow, and then we'll come back at the end in terms of addressing any gaps there are and what they're doing next with Hatch. So, Tanner, let's kick it off right away. Just tell me a little bit, set the scene about TXO and the broader Austin market.
Sure. So, Joe, first of all, thank you so much for having us be a part of this. We're excited here. At Texas Orthopedics, we're a large group. We have 39 physicians. We are a multi-subspecialty group that includes spine, trauma, and rheumatology. We service the greater Austin area with 7 locations, and we are the largest group in the area. We also have a full line of services for our patients with MRI, physical therapy, an ASC, and infusion center. We are one of 7 divisions of Ortho Lone Star, a larger statewide conglomerate. And then a few years ago or a while back, we have centralized our contact center to help us better manage our appointment scheduling lines, and then found the need to go ahead and do that for our referral team, making a subset there to prioritize those referrals. I believe we centralized the call center about 15 years ago or so, and then the referral coordinators within the last 4 to 5 years. But that's a little bit about our practice. I think from the market, it's highly competitive in Austin. Yes, we're the largest one, but we're not the only one. There's probably over 2 dozen other groups in town. It's a mix of some that are hospital employed physicians. There's large multi-specialty groups, and then it's peppered with small to medium-sized practices. And so I always tell our patient, or I always tell our employees that every patient counts, and they can easily go somewhere else if we're not able to get them in timely. So that's the name of the game, to accommodate those patients quickly and avoid losing them altogether. And then I think one other important component about the marketplace is that for specialty or independent specialty groups, referrals are really important to make sure we maintain. And I think everyone that's in an independent group that's specialized, they understand that the referral sources, the PCPs, are kind of getting absorbed by the hospitals. And so that leads to fewer resources for us. And so we have to fight harder now more than ever to make sure that we are maintaining and fostering those relationships.
So you've already touched on the consolidation side, the PCBs being absorbed and fighting harder than ever. So what does it look like well, actually, let's take a step back. Referrals, of course, the lifeblood of any orthopedic group. So talk about the organizational strategy behind referrals. What are you paying attention to? What are you working on? And then a little later, we'll get into, of course, some of the specifics.
Yeah, I agree with you. The referrals are our lifelines, kind of a little bit what I was talking about earlier. We got to get them in quickly. And for us, this has to be a positive experience for all parties involved. It needs to be streamlined, so that we can continue to foster these. So if you put yourself in the referring physician's shoes, they want to make sure that we're able to get their patients in quickly, we're able to provide quality care, which of course we do, and that we are staying in communication with them because they need to be updated along the course of that patient care journey. And so if we don't meet those expectations, they're moving on to someone else. And then similarly from the patients, they want to be seen quickly. We're in the world of instant gratification, and their best friend being Dr. Google is going to direct them somewhere else if we can't get them there. So we need to control that narrative and make sure that we're reaching out before they have the opportunity to go somewhere else. So that's what we're focused on, is closing that gap and that timeline. And I think everyone has their own controlled chaos and madness behind the curtain, and for us, that's not any different with all of our team trying to make sure we're tackling the phone calls and those patient referrals that get sent to us through the faxes and Athena buckets or emails, and having to managing those competing priorities is an ongoing challenge, but something that we want to make sure the patient doesn't feel the impact of.
So drill in a little bit more on the really like the target outcomes as it comes to referral management. You've touched on some of them already, but specifically, what are the goals there? What are the metrics? What are you paying the most attention to in terms of making sure that when it comes to patient experience and and strengthening those provider relationships, what are the KPIs that matter most that you've implemented work for?
Sure. So response time for us, we have a goal of 4 hours, and we should be contacting every single patient within 4 hours when that referral is received. We don't always succeed with that, but that's our target goal. Sometimes it's a lot faster. But in no event should a patient go without 24 hours of being contacted, because at that point, it's best guess of where that patient's going to end up. We'll still track those down, but the sweet spot is 2 hours within that 4 hour mark. And so that requires a lot of communication on our behalf. One, to make sure we have internal communication on who's doing what and which referrals are getting worked. Two, to make sure the patient knows that we received that referral. And that's right now, that's just a phone call that's being made. So we're capturing that patient at that point in time. But then there's the target of communicating with that physician to let them know that the patient is being scheduled or has been scheduled. And that's something that we unfortunately fell pretty miserably in because it takes time and effort to do that. And that's something we try to improve upon as time goes on. But we're so focused on moving to that next patient, it does fall to the wayside a little bit.
Yeah. So Hannah in a moment is going to talk about what the centralized referral team, that operation actually looks like, and some of the specific things you've built on top of Athena to make that process as streamlined as possible. Um, you've been centralized for quite a while, but get into a little bit about before this, in this referral process, what tends to break down when things do go bad? What are those break points that are maybe keeping you up at night that you're paying the most
Uh,
attention to?
I mean, there seems to be, again, some element of chaos that always takes place. And so in the past, it has been the response time. Um, as we have consolidated into the service center and made that centralized, we were bouncing around between all the different inputs that came in. And the members, the agents were being directed kind of on a whim's notice too, to either go manage the incoming phone call volume or, hey, take care of these referrals that are creeping up to a full day's worth, whatever that may be. And so we constantly felt like we were playing a game of whack-a-mole that we were just losing in. And then on top of that, it always hurt whenever a physician would come up to you and say, Dr. So-and-so reached out to me. They sent a patient over, but I didn't see that patient in my clinic. What happened? What gives? And so a little bit of your soul dies because we lost out on that patient for that physician, and that's what we're here to support. But then your mind wanders and you wonder about the impact that had to the referral source and then also our reputation management, because that's an overarching thing that drives all of this for both the referring physicians and patients. And so I think that's some of those breaking points that we've had in not getting our all of our eggs covered.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like there was a time when this idea of referral leakage was almost a problem that lived inside of the four walls of the practice and was thought of purely from an operational standpoint. But as you described earlier, with the Austin market, the consolidation, needing to fight and win every single patient, it sounds like if you do miss a referral, there is a trickle down effect in terms of not just the downstream volume, but the provider reputation, the um, maybe even the volume in the future that could come from that particular source because they ran into it. Do you align with that? Is that the competitive reality now?
I would completely agree with that. I mean, patients are very vocal on social media or Google reviews, and so they're quick to chastise us if it took too long for us to reach out to them. or if they called over but we didn't have the referral that their physician sent over. So whatever issues they run into, they're going to publicize that. And then not only are they vocal online, they're going to communicate that back to the referring physician. Sometimes those physicians reach out saying, I heard this from our patients. What's going on? What are you doing about it? So managing that reputation element is critical to the viability of these pathways.
Yeah. Thanks, Tanner. So you centralized the team, you created a team really of subject matter experts that have a greater understanding of the physician requirements, and bringing that level of standardization to, in a lot of ways, take that chaos and solve some of it with the centralization. Hannah, I want to go to you next. Take me just a day in the life of being a director of patient services, and then we'll speak a little bit more about what this centralized referral team operation actually looks like and how you're strategically, well, I guess from an operational standpoint, a workflow, process standpoint, supporting the operational strategy here.
Yeah. So again, thank you for letting us join this, just like what Tanner is saying. But yes, I'm the North Director of Patient Services here at Texas Orthopedics. I'm overseeing right now several clinic locations and then also our centralized service center. I'm also overseeing our referral team and the day-to-day processes and everything that goes with a referral department. So right now, a typical day involves me monitoring patient access, supporting our referral coordinators, reviewing performance metrics, and then troubleshooting barriers for patients that need to be scheduled. I've been working with our physicians and office managers to really make sure that our patients are getting where they need to be as quickly as possible. I think a big part of my role is to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks. It's not always easy, and there are items that do fall through the cracks, and then it's trying to figure out ways to prevent that in the future. And so, truly, every referral that we get represents a patient who needs care. It also represents a referring provider who trusted us with that patient to begin with. If we don't respond quickly enough and consistently, we are at risk of losing both of those, just like what Tanner was talking about earlier.
Yeah. Just keep coming back to that. A missed referral is not just a missed, patient appointment downstream, but impacts the upstream relationship and future volume. So at a high level, before we get into maybe some of the Athena specifics, walk me through how a referral flows into and through the centralized team and then ultimately to the most appropriate physician.
Yeah, so we have Athena buckets. So just like every office does. And so we have created a service center bucket that holds all of our referrals that come in. So they come into this centralized bucket, and then our referral department works those items as they come in. So we'll, instead of having to search through a bunch of different location buckets and different items, we just have the one. And so they are responsible for working those items that come in there. And then the way that our process is referral is received, chart creation and review. Then we have our patient outreach, and then we have our follow-up workflows, which include scheduling, and then our referral closure, which means that when that referral comes in, that we need to be capturing the referring provider of who sent it to make sure that we have that in the chart. So then whenever the patient is seen, that visit note goes back out to the referring provider so they know that that patient was seen. So we're closing that referral loop.
Yeah. You already touched on some of these, but I want to make sure for anybody in the audience, of course, there's going to be almost like the out of the box Athena solution for referral management, but you and Tanner have built out specific things to really support this workflow that is more standardized, that has a lower chance of a patient falling through the cracks. So can you speak to some of those configurations, the task assignment overrides, the custom practice role, the insurance package capture, anything like that, that we want to make sure any Athena folks on the phone can understand?
Yeah, so if we leave a voicemail, the referral moves into a follow-up status, which we call LVM1. So we're contacting the patients twice to make sure that that we're attempting to schedule the patient. And so we have two different buckets that it goes into. We'll have one person work new referrals coming in, and then one team member working referrals that need follow-up, which would be we've already reached out to them once, we're going to reach out to them again. This is where it's like a double-edged sword because once we reach out to them that second time, if the patient still doesn't schedule, we're closing that out. And so that's kind of our falling through the cracks part is we would love to be able to capture where those patients went if they don't call back, and then also to know how many of those do we lose where we're contacting them and they're just not scheduling. And then we have standardized documentation, so tracking, so everyone who is working a referral the same way, regardless of who touches it. For example, if Tanner reached out to this patient for the first time and then I reach out, the process that occurs is the same across the board. So if he reaches out, we're saying the same thing, we're directing him to that same referring provider or trying to schedule him with that referring provider. I'm going to do the exact same thing on my end. And then capturing the referring physician. So to your point on that, making sure that we are entering the referring physician in the insurance package. So that way it stays with that patient. So whenever the patient is seen with one provider or one appointment, it doesn't disappear, it stays with them. And then making sure to update that if that referring provider does change or we switch to a different provider, making sure that that gets changed with the patient referral.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think, and just kind of adding to that, I think going back to the practice roles that Hannah was mentioning that we created, I mean, I think that's where we feel like we've leveraged Athena's functionality to the max. We've added those two practice roles in the original funnel to get the referrals to there, and the second one for monitoring the follow-up attempts. And I know what everyone's thinking, oh my gosh, you just added more buckets to Athena when it's already very unwieldy. And yes, that's true, but for the staff, we're able to cut out all the other noise and just get them to focus on those referrals. Because as you know, within a practice role, there's, 3 or 4 different buckets that are also associated with that. So we feel like that part has put us at an advantage from an efficiency standpoint. And like Hannah was mentioning, we try to have some standardization of how we document in the action notes of what's been done. And then we try to do some reporting on the back end to make the most of it. It's not perfect, but it allows us to make some assumptions on what's happening.
One of the things you've implemented is this twice daily accountability log, which for those on the phone listening, Tanner and Hannah have been gracious enough to make available to you as from a best practice standpoint as a template if you'd like to implement something similar. Can you walk through it and Hannah, what it's helping you do in terms of keeping a pulse, keeping track of things? Yeah, just give a little overview of what that is.
Yeah, so our accountability log, it basically helps us keep track of lag time. So lag time and volume. So we're able to go in there and say, hey, in the last 2 months, we've had 4-day lag time, a 3-day lag time on these referrals, on referrals that we have coming in through Athena or referrals that we have coming in through another source. So like leading reach, we're able to capture all of that in our accountability log to see how far back we are, and to see, are we 2 days out on lag time? Are we same day? We're hitting our metrics and we're calling these patients the same day. And so it's just a big overview instead of having to go in all every afternoon and every evening before we leave to go in and just look at these individual. It gives us a graph. And so it just shows really nicely to see and track data and track trends that may be causing lag time. Or maybe it'll tell me, hey, tomorrow I need to make sure that I move one of my referral teams into new Athena referrals because we are getting crushed and the volume is super high and we have a 2-day lag time. Like that can happen. And so it really gives me a better overview of what's going on day to day so I can actually move those team members in the areas where I need to.
Yeah. So even across all of I guess the process enhancement that you've implemented, there's still gaps. There's still challenges that you're working through. Hannah, Tanner, can you speak to some of those in terms of the real-time visibility, the accountability tracker? It helps, but there's still those gaps there, and you're spending hours a day, you know, trying to make sure that nothing along the way is dropped. What are the challenges and the gaps that you still are facing with, even with this level of standardization and centralization across the referral team?
Yeah, so I know I'm always constantly questioning, and this runs through my head every single day, would be how many referrals came in today? How many were worked? How many patients are contacted? What's our lag time? Um, where are referrals aging? Where did they come from? There's so many things that I think I question daily that I wish that I had a resource to just like look at and see a data or a table to be like, oh, that's where this referral went. And so I have a better answer or I have a better explanation for a provider, to Tanner's earlier point, that comes and says, where did this patient go? Or why was it scheduled with my partner instead of me? And so just having something like that, I feel like would give peace of mind. And it would just make it a lot easier as far as tracking.
Follow-up question on that. Outside of the tracking standpoint for your team leads and you, where are the major time sinks in this process for at the kind of the coordinator level?
Yeah, so from the coordinator level is when we get a new referral in Athena and we're having to basically pull up two screens to build the chart out. That is a huge thing that takes at least 3 to 5 minutes to fully build out a new patient, and to make sure that we are capturing all the information that we need to when we're making that phone call to the patient so we can save a little bit of time on the phone so we don't have to ask the patient as many questions or as much information that we have to let the patient run on about so we can try to control that conversation on the phone. So it does take a little bit more time when we're building new referrals.
Yeah. Tanner, anything you want to add to, those challenges or gaps, time sinks?
And I think the other thing is, I kind of talked earlier about we created the practice rules to try to develop that funnel, but it still hasn't narrowed in enough for where we want it to be as you're having to work multiple buckets. So the idea of a next referral up mentality gets lost because the staff has to split their times there. So to be able to consolidate all of our inputs of whether it be the Athena fax referrals or the ones that we get by email into one platform and reduce the disparate systems is going to be very successful and effective for us.
Um, so I guess moving to the next section here in terms of taking it to the next level, Tanner, you decided that competing on the referral experience is really worth the investment. Can you tell me about that decision from kind of like that organizational, that strategy standpoint? I know you've touched on a lot of these key points, but now that we have a more clear understanding of the competitive side of things and what you've already implemented, kind of what went into this a decision to take it to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, just I guess the constant theme here is time is of the essence when it comes to these patients and getting them captured. And so we wanted to figure out where our inefficiencies are, and that lack of funneling is part of that. But just like any other practice, we're trying to figure out how to leverage AI in a responsible manner and an effective manner. And so the pain points that Hannah mentioned of staff, spending time building charts, whatever it may be, all that gets eliminated or significantly reduced because the AI is going to drive that for us. There's duplicate referrals that we get, or maybe the patient already called in and scheduled an appointment by the time we worked the referral. And so that would clean that out to show, hey, this patient's been taken care of. Let's not spin our wheels any further. Let's move on to the next one. So I think that's something that's going to pay dividends for us. But then shoring up the communication gap that we're missing right now with the referring physicians is another key component to be able to automate a message that goes to them that says, "Hey, we've received your referral. This patient's been scheduled for whatever date with whatever doctor it may be." That just only reassures that physician that we're taking care of their patients accordingly. So that communication element is a big missing component that takes time that we're not capitalizing on.
Yeah. Hannah, is there anything that you would want to touch on in terms of what you're trying to solve that Athena alone can't? You've mentioned the real-time visibility, some of the dashboards. Are those the key items for you?
Yeah, I think just like what Tanner was saying, building those relationships and the trust with the referring physicians. So making sure that patients have access or referring physician relationships improve, and then just visibility and accountability, less manual labor.
Yeah. And so a lot of this culminated in a decision to go with a purpose-built referral management system, in this case, Hatch, to help you fill these gaps and create the patient, staff, and provider experience that is needed to really compete in, a really competitive market and, have the experience gains that lead to capacity increases, that lead to faster throughput, that lead to ultimately driving more incremental volume from the referrals that you're getting. Tanner, can you speak to the Hatch solution and what excites you most about it so far?
Yeah, so we've had some discussions with our team. Our clinic, our referral coordinators are pretty excited about this to, eliminate the redundancy in their work and bouncing back and forth between the platforms that Hannah was mentioning. With the AI automation of taking care of the low level stuff to help the staff work at a higher level is going to be really important, that communication component. But the integration with Athena to have the notes manually or automatically imported, to pull the upcoming appointments, to pull that history, to have the one-click solutions, to contact the patient, all that stuff is going to drive efficiency for us. So the overall efficiency gains, I guess, is what I'm most excited about. I think I would equate this to dumping the bicycle that we are riding that requires so much energy and effort to get up to the top of the hill when we're constantly sliding backwards, to moving into a vehicle that has like the lane assist, some of the self-driving components, and all we're doing is taking the power, harnessing that, and just steering it accordingly, knowing that it's only going to continue to get more autonomous in that process. So I think that's really good. And then Hannah talked about some of the shortcomings that we have with reporting, and this will give us higher integrity, higher data validity in what we're having, because the input will be greater, more so controlled. And Hannah was talking about the referring physician capture within our insurance package, and that's something that's really important to us, as everyone knows. That ties it to the insurance claim, but yet, if the staff enter the wrong insurance plan and we have to correct that, unfortunately, the referring physician doesn't always make it over. And so we have a loss in data points at that point in time. And so this platform will help kind of serve as a backstop, a safety net to make sure that those referring physicians are appropriately captured.
Yeah. Hannah, you mentioned earlier that the manual patient chart creation, not only does it take a lot of time, but my understanding is not every single referral is really qualified or needs that next level of care. And so it's almost like you're doing rework or unnecessary work by collapsing that with the kind of like the automatic chart creation made possible through that ViDi integration. Seems like that's going to help out a lot.
Yeah, I think one of the other points I'm super excited about for Hatch would be that they'd be able to see if the appointment was already in there. They're able to build those ones that are, if they already are associated with an MRN, it'll show that on Hatch. So it shows us that they didn't actually have to build a brand new patient or look over a brand new patient. The patient was already in there. And so it'll show that even the patient's already scheduled. If they didn't actually truly have to make outbound calls to the patient or reach out, it shows me a lot more oversight in one area and one app that I can just look at to see, okay, how many new referrals are we getting versus how many are already scheduled with our service center outside of our referral department. So is our referral department just working where they're adding in insurance information and capturing the referring provider? Or are they actually having to make the outbound call? Or did that patient already get scheduled? And so all we're doing is closing the referral. And so if that's all we're doing mainly, then that's not a long process. So we're allowing for, 5, 7, 10 minutes to complete a new referral. Are we actually doing all of that work throughout the day, or majority of the day, are we just closing out stuff that's already been worked?
Yeah.
And we can't see that today in Athena.
Right. That lack of visibility. I think one of the interesting things that we talked about in preparing for this webinar is with the referral team, you guys have difficulty implementing any sort of incentive or bonus structure for the referral team because the KPIs that you have, they're almost fuzzy. And this is in stark contrast to some of the other yeah, I'm just going to stop. You guys are nodding your head already. Take it from here. What's this new this platform unlock when it comes to not just training the team, but the retention and really, incentivizing them around productivity.
Yeah, I think kind of like what I mentioned earlier, we'll have a stronger validity in the data that we're getting. And so we can take that with true productivity metrics and create a KPI program to bonus them. So their response time, managing the lag time, the conversion rate, and which is what Hannah's talking about of being, very challenging today to monitor true productivity. So we'll take this and give this back to them, to the staff, so that way they can be motivated, properly incentivized. Yes, they're going to be working harder, but that financial incentive will help offset some of those pain points. And that's, I think, something that will also help with our retention and make us more marketable for attracting new talent.
Yeah. Uh, for the operational teams that I've talked to, none of them want to just eliminate teams or reduce headcount. It's like, how can we do more with the staff that we have and free up time to do a lot less like manual or tedious work and a lot more meaningful work in terms of helping patients get the care that they need. So if you guys are, a year forward from now looking backwards, how will you know? What are the outcomes that that this rollout has been great in terms of not missing referrals and lag time and things like that? What are you paying attention to?
For the staff to work more efficient, like what you're talking about, and remove some of those lower level items, that's going to generate a faster response time to the patient, which should help improve our conversion rate on the whole. Yes, we're capturing a lot of patients today, but again, if we're not getting a hold of them quickly, controlling that narrative, we're running that risk. So we should see our conversion rate go up and our lag time go significantly down. And then I think that we would expect to have a more positive experience for those patients because of the enhanced communication that's going to come with that, and even through the referral sources, because I mean, sometimes they make those calls to check status of where their patient stands. We're saving their staff time as well by providing that communication for them. And then, man, for Hannah to not have to spend time twice a day to manually do our accountability log to oversee where we stand, that's significant time savings for us.
Anything to add, Hannah?
Yeah, I was just going to say their time gets redirected towards activities that directly impact patients and referring providers. I mean, it's a huge win. It's building that trust with our referring providers, building the trust with patients. Tanner had talked about patients going on social media and posting, and that's the world we live in today. And so we want to have a good reputation and we want to keep that, even if it is just, hey, they were super quick at responding back to when my PCP sent over the referral or whoever it was. As long as we're getting some kind of attraction in a positive way, that's a win.
Yeah. Coming up next is the Q&A section. And so if you guys have had questions that you've been jotting down along the way, for any listeners, feel free to start dropping those in and we can start to address them. Tanner, really the last thing I wanted to bring up was as a part of the rollout, we're creating a referral data baseline report. This kind of data, it exists in Athena, but it's near possible to pull. Can you speak to that a little bit as a part of this rollout and what it's going to help you see and establish?
Sure. So right now we have that accountability log that Hannah touched on, and that's very manual. And yes, we're keeping tabs on things, but we can't properly quantify it to our liking. We are making assumptions, educated guesses. And so to have a true baseline that says, this is how many unique referrals we're getting. These are the referral sources that they're coming from. This is our conversion rate, to then be able to compare it to the enhancements and efficiency gains that we expect will really help us understand where we've been and where we're going.
Yeah. And I'm excited to announce that this baseline report is an offer that Hatch is extending as a complimentary offer to Athena groups. So look out for the post-webinar follow-up here. I mean, this is really exciting, and we couldn't be more thankful for TXO and their work there to help make this report possible, and really help groups that want to take that patient experience, that referral experience to the next level. So again, Q&A section. Now I know I have a whole bunch of questions on my list, and so feel free to drop them into the Q&A. Tanner, you mentioned earlier just how important it is to strengthen the PCP relationships. And so, of course, timely care for patients referred and closing that loop is really important. But what else are you doing to defend those PCP relationships kind of day to day?
I mean, that's a pretty tough question. A lot of that's outside of our control. But I think one of the things our referring physicians our physicians are pretty mindful of in that relationship with the referring physician is that if there's a patient that doesn't really need much oversight and routine management, they can send that patient back to the referring physician. It helps facilitate a little bit of a bidirectional referral pattern, and that helps get the patients back to those referring physicians to help keep them somewhat viable as well. So, but that's easier said than done, but it's something we strive to do.
And we have a question follow-up here from Catherine about what you're doing to market to referring physicians. I know from a Hatch standpoint, this is one of the things we talked about earlier, is once you have kind of that pulse or all that data flowing into, you can really take that to the marketing team to identify like, hey, the volume may be going down lower here, or hey, we have an opportunity in this market because you have more of an operational pulse and visibility. So what else are you doing to market to referring physicians? That's Catherine, follow-up question.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the enhanced communication to make sure they stay in the loop is going to be a driving factor for us. And then the changes that we're making to get those patients in timely with direct access. So that's going to be a key thing. And then like what you're talking about on taking that data, we'll be able to see who's had that dip, or maybe more so re-educate those referring physicians of services that we offer that they're not referring for. Maybe we're getting a lot of hips, knees, and shoulders from Dr. Jones, but we're not getting anything from the back, so we can go communicate with them there or clean up any kind of our own internal physician preferences.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, the proof is going to be in the results.
Of course. And Hannah, maybe this is a question for you. When do touch points occur automatically versus manually by the referral team?
So we do a lot of manually. So we're calling patients versus sending them a text message or sending them a link. We try to reach out to all of our patients via phone. And then we also, if we have like established patients, our workflow is to, like if they're having a procedure done, we'll text them via a third party that we use. We don't text them through Athena though. Not today.
Referral teams, you can see them centralized, you can see them decentralized. For a group that is really looking to centralize that operation, where do you guys recommend that they start?
I think you have to start in creating that funnel, making sure that you're getting all the like items to the appropriate people that are the subject matter experts or most equipped to handle that. Then you have the efficiency gains that come with that through repetition. And so that's what I would encourage you to do, is try to facilitate that to a smaller subset of team that can be that subject matter expert for you and reduce the noise in the background.
Yeah. And then for groups that are looking to, bring in a technology layer or operationalize some aspect to improve and automate aspects of their flow, how do you go about that evaluation process and vetting different solutions or approaches? Do you start with where your biggest pain points currently are, or what's your approach there?
Yeah, I think you definitely have to have your own process mapped out. You identify what those pain points are, try to associate what kind of costs come with that from lost patient opportunity or overhead increases for the staff to support that, and then make sure that the partner that you're picking can provide the solutions for those pain points, and then additional stuff that makes your life easier that will also be conducive to a healthy patient relationship.
Yeah. We have another question from anonymous attendee popped in here. The Hatch solution platform is not information or demo. If you're interested in getting a demo on the Hatch platform after this webinar, feel free to reach out to me directly, and we'll be sure to connect you with the team. But they have a question here about clarifying the service center bucket. Can you clarify that and what you mean about it being outside of the referral department? They said, we have a referrals bucket that they all go into. Do you guys have issues with obtaining correct or valid referrals from PCPs for HMOs?
Yeah, we do. We've had processes, we have all these processes in play, but it also leaves it up to the referring provider to make sure that they're sending over the correct information for the insurance that the patient has. And so we do have where we have to call back to the PCP's office to let them know, hey, this provider doesn't take this specific body part. He doesn't see for that. And so we will reach back out to the PCP and ask them if they can update the referring um, if they can update the provider to whoever does see for knee pain, let's just say. And so we do have those challenges though today.
And then on that practice role, we share our table space with other divisions. And so it was really important that we had something dedicated just for our division to make sure that the patients weren't ending up in other places. And so that was also a driving factor to creating our own practice role for referrals.
Thank you. All right, I think we've addressed most of the questions come through. We have a couple minutes left here. So I will mention this recording will be made available. I want to thank you so much, of course, to Hana. Hana. I've been talking to you guys so much that it's just blending together a little bit. Thank you so much for the information. Like I mentioned, the accountability log, if you're looking to kind of take the next step in terms of the operational rigor and standardization that TXO has already implemented, we'll be making that available. Thank you so much for that generosity. And also excited that the referral data baseline report is available for Athena groups as a kind of complimentary offer. So there's more information coming out about that soon. I think that touches just about anything. Hana, thank you so much for your time, and we'll be in touch. And if anybody wants to reach out to you guys, they can find you, their email address. We can send that out in a follow-up if they have specific questions.
That would be great.
Amazing. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.